Hello and welcome to Dice Jesters. My name is Julie.
And my name is Dave.
And we are a merry and whimsical board gaming podcast where we dive deep into games with curious minds and a jester's grin. We feature 10x10 challenges where each season we commit to playing 10 games at least 10 times and sometimes much more. Today, we'll be doing our Jester's Gambit deep dive of the game Trois.
Yes, which I'm so excited. And we've reached the end of our 10x10 challenge. This is the final one.
This is the final countdown.
The final countdown.
Well, it's not even the final countdown. This is the final. It's the 10th.
But I'm so excited. I've wanted to show you this game for so long. This ranks up there with like Castles of Burgundy, I would say, in terms of when we started playing games, one that I knew that I wanted us to play, and I didn't have it at the time, but I got a hold of a copy. And I know when I gave you the backstory, you were really into it. Learning about the cathedral taking 400 years to build and thinking of the original builders of the cathedral weren't even alive when it finished. Can you imagine starting a project?
That is pretty wild, yeah.
Would you ever, could you be motivated to start a project knowing you won't be around when it finishes? Kind of like sci-fi stories where you hear of these intergenerational space voyages to a distant planet where when we arrive at that planet, we'll be like 3 generations down the line. Like, I wouldn't even get on that spaceship. I'm like, that's my future. That's the future problem.
I would, because then at that point, you would kind of be like the creators.
Okay.
You would be like in storybooks. So that would be pretty cool. You're like, thanks.
Well, the pyramids, those didn't take as long. Well, because I was thinking of giant structures, but we know that the aliens built that, so they probably did that in a couple of days.
Dave, this is not a sci-fi podcast.
You're like, how do you turn everything into aliens?
Seriously, I was talking to your mom the other day. I think it was during Thanksgiving, and you had brought up aliens, and even she was just all like, "He talks about aliens all the time." I was like, "Oh, that's not a new thing."
How could you not? How come nobody's talking about it?
Oh my God. I don't think anybody thinks about it as much as you do.
I've gotten to the point where I'm not sure if I'm serious anymore. It kind of started as a joke, but the more I talk about it, I'm like, maybe there's something there. Maybe there's something there.
Yeah, but for those who are new to our channel and Dice Jesters, we do 10x10 challenges, which is we pick 10 games and we play those 10 games 10 times, and that's kind of what consists of our season makeup. And the way the episodes go is this first little portion is I give, and if Dave hasn't played it yet, Dave gives our first impressions of the game on the table. Then the second middle portion is our first play of the game. Then the final portion is how we feel about the game after the 10 plays, or if we did more than 10 plays.
You get the whole journey in one episode.
Yeah.
Which is fun. So I thought I'd give a little bit of introduction to the game and why I picked it and everything, and a little bit about just some fun facts about it. So Trois was designed in 2010, and you have to think, back in 2010, dice-based Euro games were not really a thing. So Castles of Burgundy came out in 2011. So it was kind of, I would say Trois, without being an expert on the subject, I'd say that Trois was instrumental in kind of building this movement. I don't even call it movement, but introducing dice-based mechanisms into a Euro game. And I think that this game, I've played a lot of dice-based Euros, and this is really good. And have
you played this one?
Yes. So this is different than, so our first season, all the games that we played, maybe 1 or 2 I hadn't played. I think I played all of them, but I was introducing you to games that I had played that I wanted you to try. This is the first game in a while that I've played that I'm introducing in a 10x10 challenge. I've only played it twice. Mm-hmm. So the first time was at a board game convention. I wanted to try it, so I signed up to play it, loved it. And then I was at a board game meetup out of town, and some guy had brought like 3 or 4 games, and he was trying to get people to play Trois. And I was like, oh, I'll play it. And then he was really excited when we got like 2 more people to play with us, because out of all the games that he brought, he was most excited to play that. And he played it a bunch. So the game itself, though, so it was designed by Sébastien Dujardin, Xavier Georges, and Alain Orbain. Apologize if there are any mispronunciations in there, but this is made up of the designer of Ginkopolis, who is Xavier Georges, and then we just played Deus, which was Sébastien Dujardin, and I loved both of those games. I thought it would be cool to do some kind of trilogy in this I like to tie games together that we play. So it'd be cool to play Ginkopolis, then Deus, and now Trois. So the fact that we have 3 games that aren't all by the same designer but are all related, I thought would be a cool concept. And a little bit of interesting facts about the game. So Sébastien is the founder of Pearl Games, and Trois was the game that really jump-started that career. So he is an engineer. I don't know if he's still an engineer, but that was his day job at the time. He designed this game with 2 other people. And then this game launched the whole Pearl Games thing. He said that he decided to start because Trois was really starting to look like something, and I had no job at the time. So like career move, it looks like. And so I thought that was really interesting. Now they come out with a lot of games we've played. Well, Ginkopolis was a Pearl Games game, and then The Bloody End. So I know that they make games that we really enjoy. So I thought that was cool that this game led to somebody's career change or made them want to do something beyond just designing a game, which designing a game is a huge accomplishment. But I thought that that was really interesting. It shows that there's a lot of passion behind this specific project. So the game itself, though, I think that you are going to really enjoy for a lot of reasons. But I'm curious, just looking at the game on the table, what are your thoughts of the artwork, the components, and all of that? What stands out to you?
It reminds me of Bruges. That's what stands out to me the most, because in Bruges you do have the dice that you roll to kind of see what the cards are worth, and the dice in this game, I'm guessing you roll for resources. And then there's like this castle border, and Bruges had that castle border.
Oh, you're seeing some connections.
Yeah, so it has that feel, like the art style, I guess. Just the art style, that feel. Theme, yeah. As for gameplay, I'm not 100% sure. I do think that it's probably a dice drafting game because you have the tower out and there's dice, and then on the board itself it has like a meeple equals minus 2 coins and a dice. And then there's different slots where meeples can go. Right. But there's grayed out slots, which I'm guessing is because we're playing 2 players. So I feel that it's going to be, you need this number to do this. So kind of like a mix of Marco Polo maybe, or Bora Bora with like Bruges in a way.
You're kind of onto something. You're using dice to perform actions. And we're not necessarily building a wall, but there's like different things within the city that you can go put your meeple onto to be able to do that. And then there's these events that we both have to deal with at the bottom. So there's like attackers to our village that we both need to fight out, or we both face consequences of losing points if we can't do that.
Oh, we're in the same village?
We're in the same village. So in different districts. So we each have our district, and it has this really cool economy where you have meeple out in these different districts. And depending on how many meeple you have in those districts determines how many dice of that color you get at the beginning of the round, which you roll and then it goes into your district. So if you have no meeple in one district, you get no dice of that color. And the dice of certain colors you can use to do certain things. Like one gives you money, one gives you military strength, and so on and so forth. So the interesting thing about it, though, is when it's your turn, there's a variety of things that you can do. But if you need to perform an action and it requires a dice that you don't have, but your opponent or the neutral player, in this case there's a neutral player, has, you can actually pay them to take that dice, which gives them the money. But hey, you invested in that district in the city for a reason. You needed that dice. And here I came and I just took it from you. How
much can I make you pay for said dice?
So it's depending on the strength of the action. So an action either costs 1, 2, or 3 dice. Mm. If you're doing an action that costs 3 dice, or 1 dice is going to cost you 2 coins. If the action costs 2 dice, you pay 4 coins. And if the action costs 3 dice, you have to pay 6 coins. Even if you're just buying 1 dice, it costs you 6 coins. And we'll explain like what the game is after we play it for the first time, so we can just make sure that we have it all correct and everything. But it has this shared economy. And then another really interesting part about the game that was like kind of wonky to me, but it makes sense. And we've kind of alluded to this a couple of times in other game designs that we've tried, like Arc Nova. Remember we were talking about having a cool, like a hidden objective or something that everybody would score? So this game has that. We each have a hidden objective where you will get points at the end of the game for doing certain things, like whether it's money, whether it's having people in the cathedral. There's 6 or 7 different cards in the game that score you points in different ways. So we each have one of those. But the cool twist is we both score each other's card too, but you don't know what I have and I don't know what you have, but I'm trying to guess. If you're like putting a lot of people in this area of the city, I might think she has that card, but you could also be trying to throw me off. Like, I'm going to put a bunch of people here so he starts doing the same thing, but I'm actually trying to get money. And now joke's on him. He doesn't have any money. So it kind of has that too.
I love that.
I'm excited to jump in this one, teach it to you. Kind of like Ginkopolis, it's a little weird. Mm-hmm. Like the first time I played it, there were some things where I didn't do well my first game because there's just some bizarre aspects about it. But once you get through one game of this, I think you're going to be smooth sailing. And I think this is going to be a game that you both really enjoy and are really good at too.
I love that.
Adapt,
I'm looking forward to it
achieve,
because
overcome.
Duas. I was not
Deus?
good at. Yes, I can't ever pronounce the game. Jeez. Why is it not clicking? Deus. I was terrible at. And obviously terrible at pronouncing it. Jeez.
I mean, numbers don't lie.
This is like tuberculosis. I pronounced it correctly there.
You
but
did.
That's because I made sure to. I thought about it before saying it out loud. But if you just catch me in conversation, it does not come out like tuberculosis.
So why don't I go teach you the game, and then we'll come back to talk about what we do in the game and our first impressions after learning it.
Okay. And we are back after our first play of Trois. And I must say, I know you're going to get into kind of like the rundown of it, but just a little to go into it. This was quite the interesting learn for me. Honestly, it was a little bit more interesting than Race for the Galaxy.
Yeah, the card game.
It's just a bit quirky, but after getting into it and playing it, I now understand.
Now you can adapt, achieve, overcome.
Well, I don't need to adapt, achieve, overcome. This is a Julie game, yeah.
I can
if
tell.
anything, you can adapt, achieve, overcome.
I'm glad you mentioned the learning aspect because that was one thing that stood out to me. As somebody who learned the game from somebody else, I remember my first time learning it was really strange. And like I said, I learned it at a convention. The guy who taught it was really good at teaching the game. And I thought I could teach this easily. I've played it twice. And then we sat down to learn it or have me teach it to you. And I kind of went blank on the inside. Yeah. I was like, I don't even really know where to start with this. Or you put people out here. Well, I'll just kind of explain what the game is. Do you want me to do this one? Or do you want to have the honors of explaining the game?
If I do it, I'm going to do it the Julie way. So it's going to be short and sweet. So honestly, you can break this down pretty easy, to be honest.
Okay.
So there's these little places where you lay meeples down, and there's kind of a gray meeple that gets laid down as a pretend player, just kind of to block where you are allowed to lay your meeples. And there's 3 designated areas where you start the game. So they're kind of like with the dice drafting. You lay your meeple down just anywhere. And then the first round begins. So for that first round, you get 10, I forgot what they're called, doubloons. What did they call it in the game? Denier. And you pay for your workers. Then after paying for your workers, you get the corresponding dice of the area that you're in. So there's white, red, and yellow die. And then you get those die depending on how many meeple you have in that area. Then you roll all those dice and you put it in your little quadrant. And of course, the gray void workers also get their own dice for whatever area they're in. Then you're like, oh, well, what happens if I want to be more in that area? Well, you can be. So you can use any of the dice that you rolled to move into that spot. So let's say there's a 3 white die that you want to move into and you have a 3 white die. You spend the 3 white die to move your meeple and you bump someone else out of that cathedral or house or whatever you want to call it. So that is an option. Another option to use your meeple is you could use it on the action cards. What were those?
Activity cards.
So the activity cards allow you to do special actions. So they either make a dice worth more, or you can triple a die, or you can use a dice to lay down cubes into like the threat area. What was the threat area?
The event cards.
The event cards. So you can do that as well. And they're pretty self-explanatory with the icons. Some are a little quirky from the first round that we played, but there you have it. So then that is another option. And then a third option for your turn is you can go into the event cards. So let's say it requires a pit value of 3 and or you have 3 red dice that are all ones. You can combine all of those to make it a 3 red die if you like. And then you can spend those 3 red die to put it into the forever card that is there, or whatever event card that pops up. If you and your opponent complete that said event card, you split the points. Whoever has the most cubes on it get the higher of the 2 points that are listed on it. If it's all the same person, that person gets all the points. So there's 2 points listed for a 2-player game. I don't know if there's more because we only played 2. So that comes there. Then that's an option. A 4th option for your move, or 5th, whatever, if you're actually counting or not. But there's these flags at the top that are favor flags. And you can spend those to change the pit value on your dice. You can spend 2 to get another meeple so that you can lay it on the activity cards and or use it to bump off somebody who's in the dice drafting area. Or you can spend 4 to completely rotate the dice to the other side. So that is also another option. And then your 5th, 6th-ish option, if you are out of cash in any way, you can use a yellow die if you have it. It has to at least be 2 or more, and then you can spend it for 1. That's kind of like a little spot that you don't have to have a meeple by. That's just available to anybody. Then, if worse comes to worse, and you run out of all your dice, you can spend money if you have it still to use the void player's dice and or your opponent's dice, depending on what dice you're trying to get a hold of.
And those get expensive. Like if you're doing a 1 die action, it costs 2, but then if you're doing a 2 die action, it costs 4 coins per dice that you buy from someone else. And then if there are 3 dice in your action, it costs 6 coins per dice. So hypothetically speaking, if I wanted to buy 3 of your dice for a 3 dice action, it would cost me 18 coins.
Yes.
Which is wild.
Yes, it is wild. But some of the activity cards are pretty nice because let's say I'm purchasing maybe 3 and I need red and I purchase 3 red and the 3 red give me 3 times the coins or whatever they may be. I even out, but then come ahead with some coins. So it all kind of just depends. But yeah, that is the Julie explanation of the game.
I think you nailed the action. The thing where points come from. You get points for placing meeple onto the activity cards. You get points from a variety of things throughout the game. Like some of the activity cards, when you activate them, will let you convert things like coins into points. You get points for placing cubes into the cathedral to help build that. And then, as I mentioned in the intro, you have these secret objective cards that everybody will score. And only you know what you have, but your opponent has one as well. And in the game that we played, there were points that you could get for meeple that you had in the initial buildings where you get the dice from. And then you had the one where you got points for the meeple in the activity cards.
Yes.
So I think there are like 6 or 7, maybe 8 of those in the game. Mm-hmm. So I think the more you play it, the more you are paying attention to what people are going for and you try to follow based off of what they're doing.
Yeah, so. And I was giggling because you were like, oh, I think you have the cathedral card. And I was laughing because I was like, no. I didn't say no, but I let you believe it.
Well, I thought you either had the cathedral card or the influence one where the flag track. You had a lot of influence in the game.
I just didn't need to use influence. That's how much influence I had.
So this is a game that I've played 3 times now. I've never won. And that continues the trend because you won this first game.
Yes.
Which I could tell when we first explained the rules, it was a little bit weird. And I was like, bear with me. I think after I get through a couple of rounds of this within the game, there are 4 rounds. So about halfway through, I think it started to click for you. And I can always tell because you start, I don't know, smack talking is the right word. Or
I start cackling.
You start cackling. I can tell there's like these gears going on in your head and you have these plans that are just clicking together. But this is a game where I always feel like I don't have money. I don't have influence. I got nothing to my name.
I got nothing
so I always
to my
feel
name.
in this game. But after playing it with you and playing other games, there's like so many things about this game. It's kind of like the greatest hits of Julie mechanisms because you got Bora Bora in there with the dice drafting, but also knocking people out. Like you got that bumping thing that you really like. It has like the restriction of a game like Agricola where you have to pay for things constantly because at the beginning of each round, you didn't mention this, but there are these activities that you have to evaluate and these black dice come out and you have to you roll them and then players take turns trying to fight those off. You have to pay for those. You also have to pay for the people that you have in those initial buildings at the beginning of each round. So you're having to pay those costs. And then the secret objective thing, it feels like there's so many things within this. And being smart too, because you love games, it seems like, where it's like, oh, I'm going to spend 3 dice to get coins here, and then I can use those coins to activate this. And then you always chain together these really smart bonuses. But it's so unique. And for coming out in 2010, I think that this game really holds up for me, even just playing it a very limited number of times. I can tell this is going to be one that we're really going to enjoy.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. I thought when we first started, I was just like, oh.
You're like, you like this game?
Like, I don't see it. And then we got to ending the 3rd round, and then that's when I started cackling. I was like, oh.
When that cackle comes out, I know I'm not going to win. You've probably already calculated the points, and you know that
Well, I did, because remember at the end, you're like, oh.
I think you won.
And then I was like, I know I did. And you were like, how? And I was just like, because there's no more ones, but I'm not holding ones. You're holding ones.
I think a cool thing about the game that stood out to me, too, is that we've played a lot of games where, sure, there could be variability in it, but it seems like there's a lot of variability in this game because there's 3 different colored action cards. And of the 3 different colors, there are 3 cards that come out. So there's 9 different activity cards total that come out each game. So that's going to be different. But what's interesting about the game is it starts with all the activity cards flipped down. So you can't necessarily start the game knowing what your strategy is going to be. There's a lot of hidden information.
Yes.
And then each round within the game, a new activity card will be flipped over. So then by the end, all 3 are flipped, and then there's one more round. So you have 2 rounds with complete open information minus the endgame scoring card that your opponent has. But you kind of are trying to piece it together throughout the game. And then the level 3 activity cards, when those get flipped over, seem like the best. Like, oh man, okay, now I can try to make everything work together on the board. So just a lot of really wonky but cool stuff going on in this game. And I think it's a good one.
I think so too. Yeah. No, I agree. I'm just thinking about the next plays because this one, to me, at least this first play out of our 10, I felt went a little long, but I think it's because it was that learning round for us. That
for sure.
Play.
I had to look up all the different cards.
I know, and I was like, I thought you read the rules. You're fine. So I am enthusiastic to get into our additional games.
Me too. Well, we'll go play at least 9 more plays of Trois. And then we'll come back and talk about our experience. Did it hold up over those 10 plays? Is it truly a Julie game? Did she beat me in all 10 games the way that I beat her in Deus?
Hey, we tied in one.
Hey, you're already doing better in Trois, so there's that. But I'll hold on to that victory of a 10-game winning streak. Was pretty substantial. You're like, one of those was a tie.
One was a tie, and it was like right in the middle.
Okay,
so
well, I didn't lose. I didn't lose any of the games.
Well, I didn't lose that game either. We tied. You know what?
I'll take the victories when I have them.
Okay. Well, I am going to go to the Google and ask Google what a high score in Trois is, and that will be what I want to beat.
Okay. Sounds good. We'll be back for you in just a few seconds.
Oh, yeah. Well, not a few seconds. I don't know. After our music.
Enjoy.
Enjoy. And we are back from completing our 10 plays of Trois with 2 additional plays.
12 plays.
So 12 plays in total. And yeah, we took a little break after we completed our 10 plays of it, and then we came back, did 2 more, and here we are now.
It seems like just with the holiday season and things, we got a little bit tied up, and then enough time had passed where we were like, I think we should go back and play it a couple more times, but I was glad to.
Okay.
And I think that you were also a little bit salty.
Salty?
Because you didn't have a clear win in the first 10, so you felt like you needed a couple more to show that you were, in fact, the champion of the city of Trois.
We tied twice. So we played 2 more to make sure that was a fluke of some sort.
Which, by the way, in the rule book, there's no tiebreaker in the game. How do you feel about that? Because we've come across that a few times in games that we've played. I don't know that I'm the biggest fan.
I'm not the biggest
fan. I just want there to be a clear winner. Yeah. There should be some kind of tiebreaker.
Even if it's something like dorky, like Arboretum, where it's like, oh, go plant a tree, and whoever's tree is the tallest. Like, I still like that there's something. Yeah.
Something to fall back on. Even if it's not like, okay, the planting a tree thing obviously is outside the scope of the game, but it still adds a layer of fun.
It does, and it like completes the friendship in some type of way because you have to be friends with them to go back to see some type of tree growth. But
I need closure in my games.
Yes, but for this game, what we did for the tiebreaker was the secret agenda cards. What were those called? The secret
objective cards.
Objective cards. Yeah, we after the game ended, we revealed our objective cards, took final scoring. We did a random pull of the objective cards, and whoever had the most points for that objective card, that's how we decided who won.
The tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting way of doing it, and I felt like that was pretty fair because it kind of simulates having a third person at the table when you think about it.
Well, when you play 2-player, it kind of does have that third person because you use the gray meeples to use as like an additional player.
True. And I also feel that the strategy that you take, or at least I took in the game, was trying to do well at kind of everything, which you kind of almost have to in certain ways. Everything kind of works together. So flipping over that third card, even though there's no way you could have known what you should have been going for, still shows that you were doing basically everything really well in the game, that you would score that third one well too.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like for this game too, if we're going into just kind of like how we played and everything, for this, the initial 10 plays, I played for my objective and guessing your objective card, but then the 2 additional plays that we had done, I just played the game. I didn't really care. Like, I knew what my objective card was, but I didn't continuously check it. I was just like, nah, it's good. I got it. I'll figure it out if I want it. And then I wasn't too worried about your objective card. I was just going for it. And I feel like that ended up being the best strategy for me because then my points were higher.
Do you feel like the secret objective cards are rats in this game?
Yeah, maybe they were distractions.
What I mean by rats, if you're confused, traces back to our plays of Notre Dame that introduced this rat system where you get punished for your city getting overrun with rats. But we figured out that the rats are okay. Like, you just have to figure out ways to
live around
the rats. To live with the rats. They're pretty cool. So it's a fancy word for distraction. That's what we mean. To distract you from what really matters in the game. And I believe that the secret objective cards are a little bit of a distraction. Yes, you can get a lot of points from them, either 1, 3, or 6 points, depending on how well you do within that category. But if you're looking at the card that you have and you're basing your whole strategy off of getting 6 points in the game, you're losing out on opportunities to get more points elsewhere. So I think just trying to play well, even if you only get 3 points in your own category, you're probably going to do well in your opponent's category, no matter what they have too. So did you feel the same way?
Yeah, I'd say so. And I also felt that you can kind of, you can win the game in, I know this is really narrow, and some people might not think this, but one of 2 ways. You could go for the flags and the threats to get points, or you could go in the middle and put your meeple on those like special, I don't know, move places.
The activity cards?
Yeah, the activity cards, because those also give you points. So you could be the first one to lay it down and then get the points there. And
even if you don't use the card.
Yeah, exactly. Because some cards have like 3 points. And, that's a lot of points in this game. And so I feel like you can kind of pick one or the other and still even out with the other person. So if somebody was going for just the threat cards and you were just going for the activity cards, you could still come to a pretty close score at the end, depending on the other person's objective card or your objective card. Yeah, because our points were pretty close. Even like our last play of the game, you're like, our points weren't close.
You had like 8 points more than me.
Yeah, I still consider that close because if you looked at mine, I had a bunch of the threat cards. I had at least 5 and they were all pretty high yielding. They were like the 3-2 or the 4-1, But I got all the points from those cards though, because I only wait to complete a threat if I can personally complete it because I don't like sharing my points.
Which I loved going in there and just putting one key on so that I got something. Made you do all of the work, which was a lot of fun.
And then I was like, I'm just going to ignore that threat now.
I think everything works together really well in this game. You kind of need a little bit of everything. Like you need the influence, the flag track thing. You need that in order to pay for things like getting additional meeple into your supply or being able to reroll dice or flip them over to the other side. And then in order to get the flags, you have to either put cubes in the cathedral or cubes on the event cards. But then also conquering the event cards also eliminates those threats that come out that are really annoying at the beginning of each round that really put you off track. And then you need people in those city buildings in order to get dice, and then you need to use the dice in order to do stuff on the activity cards. And then so it's kind of this whole system of things that all flow together really well, I found. And you can have rounds of it or plays of it where everything just kind of hums together. You find this whole system of, oh, I can have a meeple on this card and this gives me that, and then I can then transfer that over to this other card and use it to get points or money, and you can have this really good engine going. But if you make wrong moves early in the game and you don't establish that cohesive system, it can really throw you off for the whole game. Like the games that I won, I felt like I did a really good job planning everything. Even though you don't know what those cards are going to be, the activity cards, because they get flipped over each round, you can still make really good moves that set you up for whatever comes your way within the game. And it was clear when I lost the game, I could trace it back to the beginning and know that I made incorrect moves.
Yes. Speaking of the activity cards, though, I do feel that when it comes to replayability, that the activity cards, if you don't cycle through them and you kind of like do them more random where you shuffle and lay down, it may, depending if you're playing with the same person 10 times like us, well, 12 times in this case, but they'll look for something because you would look for the goldsmith. And you had this thing working where one of the white activity cards was, I don't know, like you get the yellow pieces for free or whatever. And then you would use the free yellow pieces, the yellow die that you had to then go to the goldsmith and then get points and coins. And then you would use the coins to purchase more die. So you would have like this little thing going. And if you do it random, the goldsmith may come out for all 10 games. So I would say to minimize repetition like that, maybe be like, oh, okay, we're doing the goldsmith, we're doing this, we're doing that. And you could keep it shuffled too. You could just move that to the side as, okay, we already played these cards and then shuffle the 3 that's remaining and then go. So then it's still random, but you're not playing with the goldsmith for like 4 games that you lost 4 times.
Well, I would respectfully disagree because there's I think 3 of each level card. And so if I'm going to base my whole strategy off of hoping that the goldsmith is there, that's just not a good way to play it. Although it could be there. And I cheered every time it did come out. Although you may have noticed in the last game, but I also lost the last game. So the goldsmith, that was definitely one of my favorite ones.
Yeah. Well, the last game also had the option of getting points if you had cubes in your cathedral. And you already had lots of cubes in the cathedral because your objective card was to have cubes in the cathedral. So you wanted to get points from those cathedral cubes as opposed to the goldsmith ones.
Yeah, exactly. And although the secret objective cards maybe weren't everything, it was still, again, the game is all about trying to look at what you have, what's coming out, and doing your best to make everything work together. So when I saw that there was a card that gave points for cubes in the cathedral, I knew that was a good place to go because I had the secret objective card of having cubes in the cathedral, so it only made sense to go that route. And although the secret objective cards weren't everything, I still found it a lot of fun trying to guess what each other had. And we would throw each other off like, oh, I'm going over here and doing this thing. Oh, is that the card that you have? And you would kind of play into it a little bit. And then you would switch what you're doing the last, I don't know, because there's 4 rounds in the game. Mm-hmm. The 3rd or 4th round really trying to focus on that. And then by the end, you're going for it. And now it's too late for your opponent to try to do that.
Yeah, because I realized that you had I don't know, whatever housing ones are where you get the dice drafting in the beginning. So then I waited for the last round to start kicking you out because I knew that you wouldn't be able to get those meeple back to then re-kick me out until it was all over. So I was just like...
So how do you, in terms of your journey through the game, how did you start with this game and kind of how did you end up in terms of your opinion of how good of a game this is or experience?
So at first, I really enjoyed the game. I was like, oh, I really like this. Like, it's good. And then I had like that little win streak going, and then it went down because you had won, and then I was just like, oh, okay. And then you started winning. It made me think of the game differently because I was just like, what am I doing that changed, because you were catching on and I was still doing what I was doing initially. So then I started playing it differently, and then I was like, huh, okay. And then we finished our initial 10 plays, took a break, and then came back and did 2 more. And during these 2 plays, I was even more like, huh, okay. So ultimately, it started off like really excited. And then as we played more games, or more plays of it, I am just like, this is just an okay game. This game is okay.
Like middle of the road?
Yeah. I think it's because I ended up feeling like I can do everything that I want to do in the game.
You're just that good.
No, that's not what I meant. I just meant like it is possible to do all the things you want, as opposed to a game that has always been in my like top 5 since starting, which is Agricola, where it always feels like you could use one more round in the game. This game, Trois, felt like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm good. Like, I even felt good after 3 rounds. Sometimes I felt like the 4th round was unnecessary, but that's just how I felt for it.
See, I felt like the flow of the game really ramped up because you start with just placing some meeple out, trying to do a couple of things, but then by the end, with those level 3 cards that are out, that's the round of the game that you're really trying to collect as many points as you can. So to me, each round within the game felt a little bit different in a progressively more exciting sense. It just kind of builds up to this. But I will say that initially my impression of the game is this is a game with a lot of variability within the game, where each time we play it, it'll feel very different. And then the more we played it, it seemed like it doesn't have as much of that variability feel as you might be led on to believe. Like each game felt pretty similar to me, even though the cards were a little bit different. It still didn't feel dramatically different.
Yeah, that's why I feel that if there was like an expansion or something for the activity cards, so that you don't know what card's coming next or what to do with that card, knowing what that card does and that stuff, I feel it would add a little bit more depth to the game if you are somebody who replays games multiple times like we do. I feel that way. But then I also felt that I, in general, like thinky games, like games where I get stuck or where there's a puzzle for me to figure out or something like that. But for this game, it's pretty like streamlined. You can't really get stuck. The only time you get quote unquote stuck is if you have to go into the cathedral and you roll your white die and the numbers pop up and you don't have any flags, so you can't change it, or you're purchasing from someone else, so you can't change it. And so the number that you have, that specific column for that die is taken. So then you're like, oh, well, what do I do? How do I get a flag so that I can roll my white die? Or how do I convince the other person to roll theirs so I can purchase it from them? But why would they roll it and then not use it? Type deal. So I feel that you can do everything you want.
True. And I initially thought, as I'd played it a couple times and I was rereading the rules and stuff, it seemed like this is a game that has a lot of restrictive qualities about it, especially with the event cards in the very beginning of each round. The fact that you have to fight off these black dice and you can't just keep your dice, you need to use them for things. But then also you have to pay for the dice that you collect as income. You have to pay for the dice depending on which city that they're coming from. And then you also run the risk of somebody else buying your dice, because although it's great to collect dice, if you have a way of getting a lot of money, you can go in and just buy somebody else. So I thought due to the player interaction of the game, but then also these events that come out, these are things that you have to work around and overcome in order to do really well in the game. However, I think that the events, although that there were some in there that were nasty, like would just derail you, or and especially if you don't have any red dice to fight off the black dice, you could kind of ignore those. I found I didn't feel like I had to go in and fight those off, although it was a strategy for getting flags and then also getting points. So it was good to do it, but if you didn't do it, there was a couple of plays of it where you were going like all in on those and I was barely even touching them. So it's going to sound bad, but if they were a little bit more punishing, where, I really want to do this thing, but if we don't work together to fight this off, it's going to be catastrophic and I can't do anything in the game. So I thought it would have that feeling of what game were we playing where we realized that it was cooperative in nature in some ways, but we were still competing? That was a pretty recent.
Yeah, that was a pretty recent game. I can't think of it right now though, but where we were like, let's just get rid of this together type deal because it was so detrimental.
Well, it's not ringing a bell.
Yeah, it's not coming to me.
So I thought because I had that, it would be something really enjoyable. But since it wasn't an extreme threat, we could just leave it. So all I'm trying to say is it felt less restrictive than I thought.
Yeah. Well, no, that's very true because there was one play where neither of us eliminated any threats. We were all on the upper side of the board, and it got to the point where the threats were like off the board. Like I even asked, I was just like, oh, if they go off the board, do they just not count? And then you looked at the rules or something and you're like, no, they just go off the board then. And neither of us took them out or anything. We just were like, okay, that's fine. We'll just get rid of the threats, or we'll go through the threats. It's not that big of a deal. Because they'll be like, oh, take a cube off of one of the threats or one of the events. And then it's like, oh, lose 3 coins, but you get coins in the beginning of the round. So it's not the biggest of deals. And then it'll be put a gray cube in the cathedral. So it's nothing too aggressive that makes you go, oh, let's really get rid of this.
Exactly. So I think, you and I were at this stage of our board gaming journey together where we like games to feel challenging over an amount of time that's greater than 10 games, where we wanted to get to the end of a 10 by 10 challenge and think, although we've explored everything potentially, there's still enough challenging aspects within the game where we could keep coming back to it and feel like this is still something intellectually engaging, I guess.
Yeah.
Like a
brain tickling.
Yeah. Like Agricola, a perfect example. Like we could go back to that at any point, and the amount of cards in that game have the variability, and it's always going to feel like a challenging game to play. This is like the perfect example. Mm-hmm. And this game at first kind of has those enticing elements, but the more you play it, I'm still thinking this is a good game, but I don't feel like it's a huge challenge anymore to play.
Yeah. No, I see that. I do think that this game is a good game for like intermediate, for people who want something bigger, but they're not ready for super like thinky games, right? That's what they're called.
Yeah.
But this one's like a more forgiving game. That's what the word I'm looking for.
True.
It's very forgiving to where if you do something in the first round that may not be to your benefit, you can make up for it in the second or third. Like you can make up for it in lots, because I have decided to usually wait until the third or fourth round to start really doing things that I should have been doing the whole time. The first 2 rounds, I decided to just collect coins. That's really...
Money is good to have in the game.
Yeah, because then you can use to purchase everything else. So I was just like, oh, I'll just do that.
I would be interested in this. Is actually, I was getting ahead of myself originally, but then decided for us to go play this game. So the designers of this game actually came out with a re-envisioned version of this game called Black Angel. So Black Angel is based on the DNA of this game, but they revisited the design years later, and then it takes place in space, and there's all this cool stuff. So I have that game, and I was going to have us play it originally on a 10 by 10 challenge, but thought we should probably go back and play Trois first before we play this so that we can compare the two and see how the design evolved since Trois and was re-implemented and reimagined within Black Angel. So
okay, very nice.
So if you'd like to take that journey at some point, we can go back to play it. But in terms of Trois, would you say that this is a keep it to play or a trade it away for the shelf of Jester cheer?
See, that's hard to say. Because I know that there'll be games I like more, but I really like the artwork in it.
It is really cool. I love the medieval look.
Yeah, me too.
It's a tough one. So I really enjoy the game, and I know that there's an expansion for it too called the Ladies of Trois. I've played with it both times I played before. And it adds, I think, more of the activity cards, more of the objective cards and stuff. And I think that is potentially what this game is lacking.
Well, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah, without knowing that, I said it should have an expansion of the cards. Mm-hmm. So
just to add a little bit of that variation within the game.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I don't know.
What was it? You had a third category. It was like shelve it in the dark.
Yeah, put it in the dark and wait for the light to return. Or yeah, it was all like put in the back or something, and then like when we find it, we are like, oh, let's play it, and then it's like, oh yay, that was fun, and then we just hide it again until we find it again.
Well, I wonder too, because we've played it so many times in a row. Mm-hmm. is it a game where you put it on the shelf and then you come back to it, 6 months to a year later, and it feels it's a fun game to play, but you don't need to play it all the time, or even if we had somebody else who wanted to play. I also wonder, it'd be interesting to play Black Angel, and then at that point, if we really like Black Angel more than Twa, it would be the clear, like, let's keep Black Angel. And then, or maybe at that point, we come back and revisit Twa and play the two side by side and then see how our opinion has changed over time. I'm kind of like, I could go either way with this one at this point in time.
I can too, because I feel like this one, if you were to say, hey, do you want to play a game? And you gave me this one and, I don't know, a different option, I might go with a different option depending on what it is.
Exactly.
But it's also not a bad game. Like, it's not bad at all. It's just, I don't know. There's something about it that doesn't tickle my brain.
Well, you need a food reference. It doesn't have enough seasoning at this point. But it's not meaty enough at this point.
The presentation, you're not, creme bruleeing it in front of me.
Yeah.
Bruleeing it.
So let's maybe not trade it away for now.
Okay.
And we'll come back and see how we feel after some time, especially around when we play Black Angel. I don't know when that'll be, but at some point, it'll be long enough from now where we'll have a chance to see how our perceptions have continued to evolve, and at that point, what our opinions of the game are.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Perfect. Well, thank you for taking the journey, because, this is the last game of this 10x10 challenge, and it has been a journey.
Oh, yes.
So thank you for playing Twa with me and these 9 other games alongside this one.
Yes, and thank you for finding all the games in our 10x10 challenge. And thank you so much for listening to us. If you would like to hear our ranking of these 10 games to see where Twa makes it on the list, I believe that will be the next episode.
Yes, yes it will.
Yeah, so be sure
to wrap it out.
Yeah, so be sure to tune in next week to hear that. If you would like to see photos of our gameplay or just kind of photos of what we've been doing, you can find us on Instagram under Dice Jesters. We're also on the Patreon and YouTube under Dice Jesters as well. If you would like to email us, I don't know, about games, about
life,
questions, I don't know, whatever, I guess. You can email us at thedicejesters@gmail.com. So that's thedicejesters@gmail.com. But yes, as always, be sure to play games with the ones you love.